Donald Trump will arrive at the White House in January on what some are calling an isolationist ticket, which will bring about increasing trade restrictions. However, in his acceptance speech, Trump spoke about working with countries that want to work with the US. We're talking now to a businessman, Philip Letts, who, through his company Blur Group, has interests in the US and across the world. Philip, good to talk to you. First, what does the Trump victory mean to you as someone with those global interests?
I think the Trump victory is probably a continuation on the theme that we have seen throughout this year, throughout 2016, which is uncertainty. And as we've seen, obviously, in Western Europe and the UK with post-Brexit, where we've seen an increasing level of uncertainty, I'm certainly what we see with our corporate clients is a higher anxiety around uncertainty as we go into the Trump era.
Yeah, I mean, his election, though, is bolstered by the fact that Republicans now dominate both the House and the Senate. But those same Republicans won't want to see their international interests hit by what some see as extremist policies, whether it's a war between Mexico and the US or punitive tariffs on Chinese goods. Surely Trump will be kept in check, won't he?
And again, I think there's a let's see. I mean, one of the headwinds that Trump has coming into his term is that they've had quite a clean sweep for the GOP across both the House and the Senate, and that gives him a fairly strong hand. I mean, obviously, we'll have to see how his relations with Paul Ryan come along, because obviously Paul Ryan is probably more of an open trade supporter, whereas Trump clearly has been making a lot of noises that would lead to protectionism. But he does have the ability to push through on a number of items. I mean, ultimately, the US, because it's such a big country and a large economy, does tend to self-right itself. But I think we are going to go into an era, both in Europe and the US, where we are going to see certainly a greater groundswell around protectionism, and that will lead to a different climate.
This is all part of this populist move, isn't it? I mean, we've got the Italian referendum coming up. There's elections in Austria, the Netherlands, France and Germany next year. This is no longer a localised movement, of course, rooted in the recent Brexit vote. Do you see a new world order coming through, or do you think that what we've experienced over the last 10 years or so, and that's a creeping globalism, winning through? I mean,
I think the pendulum is starting to swing a bit back on the huge drive that we've had around globalisation over the last 10, 20 years. It does feel like the pendulum's coming back a little bit, and that there will be an increasing amount of protectionist actions. I think some tariffs might start to return. I think there's going to be increasing tension and competitiveness from the East versus the West. And I think geopolitical issues are going to factor increasingly in the corporate agenda. I also think that this is absolutely forcing multinational corporations around the world to start to rethink their supply chains and the way they think about both their day-to-day expenditures as well as more strategically their direct spend into their goods and their warehouses.
So what does this mean then for Blur Group, a UK-listed company with interests in the States and, of course, across the globe? Where do you see this impacting your operations?
I mean, Blur Group naturally helps larger enterprises to deliver both savings and efficiency in their day-to-day spend. So we have definitely seen a high level of corporates coming to us to not just trial our platform in early days, but also start to talk to us much more aggressively about more strategic implementation through 2017 and beyond, which is important for the stage that we're at. The number one strategic imperative for most large corporates for this year and next is and will be cost efficiencies and cost reduction. So I think there's a more defensive attitude out there, which naturally plays into a platform like ours that helps to find greater efficiencies around spend management.
Philip, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks for joining us. That's Philip Letts, Chief Executive of Blur Group.